Hello, everyone. This is Babamots coming at you with another match from the Great Homeworlds Tournament of 2024. This is a game from the finals where each of the players is going to play each of the others two times, once going first and once going second. There are only three finalists since Stain needed to withdraw. We've done Yaihar and Fiendmonger's games, and now I'm going to do one. I might leave Fiendmonger versus Simon, where Fiendmonger goes first until last, since that game is still going. But let's do the one where Simon goes first. Simon is the higher rated player. My money would be on them for sure. Um, Simon's been playing for longer than I have, and I always tell my story about Simon. Simon retired before, well, went on sabbatical before I even started playing the game. They'd been very dominant and then came back and did really, really well as soon as they picked up the game again. I've been talking to Simon lately about Gemini homeworlds that have been so popular lately. Simon's an old timer like me. Simon's an even older timer than I am, and came from an era where Gemini was extremely uncommon. Small universes were kind of viewed with suspicion. And Simon, we see the first moves already on the board, has chosen a homeworld near and dear to my heart, the red blue Goldilocks. This is from a move from an older time. Fiend going with the more modern approach. We've got the yellow blue, large yellow blue Gemini. All right, let's see. Oh, Simon used a time joker. I didn't know that that would consume a next move click. Now I know. So Simon, I guess, went on vacation, came back a few days later, and built their first ship. All right. I do feel like large universes are becoming sort of a lost art. Most universes are small these days. So good on Simon for trying to keep the old ways alive, I say. Since there is a small star that accelerates the reds, Fiend, I think, is wise to trade for reds to make sure to not miss out on that medium early on. Simon can trade, yeah, trades the medium. And so here's sort of a funny situation that I see sometimes and think about and wonder about. If Fiend were to, we could get a big reset. If Fiend builds R2, Simon sacrifices Y2 to overpopulate, then we're back at the starting position, except that it's Fiend who gets to go first. So overall, that's a slight win for Fiend compared to the beginning of the game, I think. So Fiend, I think maybe should be comfortable with building that red. Spreads out instead. This is okay. Simon spreads out the reds, giving, yeah. So Fiend, by putting this red here, of course, puts Simon in a position where they can't build red again without losing a star. And so Simon takes care of that problem and puts their red where it can build safely instead. But this is kind of a Gilligan. Red at green can never change colors or move without assistance from other ships, so that could become a liability. Simon building a small yellow instead of more red sort of surprises me. Fiend won't want to build more red immediately, but Simon's sort of giving Fiend the chance to spread out the reds and be set up for a shopping spree in a minute here. And oh, and of course the chance to just invade. Um, yeah, I think mm, yeah, Simon moving to that colony I think was maybe a good move. I don't know. The this game's got too complicated a tree for me. Um, But yeah, I think Fiend was probably right to invade. Now Simon's got to come up with another plan to get more reds. Yeah, Fiend is ahead, I'd say here. They've got more ships and bigger. They're up by a medium. Fiend taking the shopping spree to build 3 reds. Yeah, that's wow. That's good. I'm a little surprised Fiend's doing so well against Simon, who's such a good player. Um, Simon may not have seen the shopping spree coming, and even if they maybe they did and just couldn't do anything about it, I I as usual just didn't even notice it. Um, but yeah, Simon can't overpopulate Fiend's home or anywhere else, and can't build that G3 without losing their mothership, which Fiend would be able to take advantage of by moving in right away. Um, nice little lead for Fiend here. Fiend or Simon takes another green. Fiend trades out for more green, so Fiend may get a chance to milk the cow a little, as I say. Oh, Simon uses another time joker. More vacation time, I guess. Yeah, 4 days went by between these moves. Um, I don't remember ever seeing someone use a time joker before. That's a feature of Board Game Arena where I think they give you a few every year where you can say, "Give me 4 extra days in all of my games," which can't be used in games that BGA knows are tournament games. Oh, geez, I just realized that in the very first game of this series, I said that the time controls were 15 days per player with no increment. That's not true. Um, these are games that BGA did not know were tournament games. They were organized separately, and so they didn't have tournament style in place. Okay, well, if you watched the first game and were confused, then you can be unconfused now. All right, where are we? Sacrificing a green. Oh, that of course. That's why Simon wanted the little green. I was thinking, oh, you should be going after these reds. Um, Simon was going after the reds, but did it by building the G1 so that they could sacrifice it to get more red. Fiend should quite should perhaps have well, this is a draw-ish move. Simon or Fiend could have chased this little red around with with a large ship moving to yellow systems, which Simon would either have to get creative or Fiend could force a draw. Fiend is up, so Fiend should probably not be thinking that a draw is a good idea, except for the fact that Simon is such a good player that I would probably take a draw against Simon. Um, yeah, Simon gets that red 3, and Fiend gets another red 3, so Fiend is still up by a large ship, but Simon has 2 large ships now, and 2 large ships is a lot better than one. Simon can have a nice, safe colony to build at now. Fiend trading out their R3 for B3 now. Milking the cow, as I say. Preparing to build that R3 again. Simon blocking it in the best tradition by discovering it as a star. Fiend builds a little blue. Yeah, not Fiend could invade. Um, I would have at least strongly considered moving this R2 into Doge. It's a little scary. It looks like it's going to be a supernova, but to supernova it, Simon would have to bring in their red 3. And yeah, I trade an R2 for an R3 and an R1 almost every time. And even though they're Gilligans, the less material your opponent has, the better. But Simon built the blue instead. Sorry, Fiend built the blue. Could be thinking that they'll outrun Simon and get a lot of the blue before Simon gets much, and that could be. Simon builds yellow. Fiend doesn't have any yellow right now. This was a mistake we saw from Fiend in the last game I cast. Fiend was pursuing blue while their opponent went for yellow, and it didn't go well. Um, Fiend is going to want some yellow at some point, but for the time being, just spreading out the blues. This makes this a very healthy colony. It's well defended. Bleb is a good place to be. Um, one of these reds could be traded for yellow potentially, and that would be strong. Simon. This is one of the most interesting. Well, there are a lot of things that are the most interesting thing to do in the game, but one of them is discovering this star takes the medium yellow out of the bank. It's not that medium yellow is the biggest ship. It's just that it's the best color. Medium is the best size for Fiend to trade for yellow right now. Um, so there's yellows left in the bank, just not the right size. That's a fun little trick there. And of course, Simon also wants more. Uh, well, it's the only size that Simon can move to. They want to accelerate the yellows because Simon is the one building the yellows, but it also has this odd effect of cutting out Fiend's best yellow trade. Yeah, the blue trading the blue works, but now Fiend's got a little less blue, and this colony, to my eye, is slightly less healthy because it can't trade its colors and build them at the same time. Simon, yep, gets the yellow shopping spree. Fiend has a large yellow, that is as much yellow as one technically needs, but it's also their only yellow. And both players, I think at this point, should be eyeing the blues, since both players have sufficient pieces in the color of one of their opponent's home stars. They just need the blues now. Yeah, Fiend has the same idea, and so does Simon. Simon at this point is threatening to overpopulate Fiend's home star. Fiend probably was planning on spreading out these blues anyway, which they do. Big picture, Simon is still a little down in material, um, but yeah, anyone's game realistically, I think. Little advantage to Fiend probably. Both players spreading out their blues. Um, Fiend here, I think, should be thinking about bullying these colonies. Trouble being that as soon as yeah, there's yeah, it's kind of a static position. Fiend, for Fiend at least, Fiend has yellow in all of their systems, but as soon as they move something out of here, they don't have yellow, so they can't invade these colonies well because they're not connected. They're on the same row, all medium stars. So and if Fiend were to move their Y3, which would be a perfectly good invader, at least in the Faust system, they're leaving these ships in Bleb open to invasion by uh, Simon's R3, which isn't so good. And Fiend can't even overpopulate because starting to get the players backwards. Yeah, Fiend can't overpopulate because there's no more red to build, and Fiend doesn't want to sacrifice their Y3 to move their only remaining, oh, to move one of their reds over here. They'd be losing more material than Simon that way. So long and short being, Fiend is not in a good position to take advantage of their material lead. Can't bully those colonies well. Um, builds that blue. So both players are thinking about building the blue. Okay, Fiend now has the ingredients for a Doomsday Machine. Unless they need more yellow? Let's see. If Fiend were to push this little blue forward into Alti, and then move in a little blue, move in another blue. Oh yeah, yeah. So here's an interesting thing. I would suggest to Fiend that to moving the little blue forward, and then Fiend can move in the blues slowly, one at a time, and Simon sort of has to capture each one because as soon as Simon doesn't capture one of them, Fiend can sacrifice the G3 to build the remaining blues they need for the catastrophe from the bank. So Simon has to keep capturing. But if Fiend does blue first before the yellows, oh, that works out. That works out. Sorry, before the reds. So they can overpopulate the blue star that way, and then Fiend is potentially without a green, without a mothership, due to having sacrificed it for the build that I said at the end there. Simon could counterattack Fiend's now helpless home that's only got the R1 in it, but Fiend wins in one more turn with the R3 sacrifice. With the Y3 sacrifice. So Fiend is just a few moves from winning here. If they want to, as soon as they move this B1 forward, they should be thinking doomsday thoughts. Okay, Simon, on the other hand, Simon, it's Fiend's turn right now, and another reason that Fiend should move this out is that if they don't, Simon can sacrifice Y2 to move two little blues into Fiend's home to knock out the star for cheap. And then probably wins soon thereafter with the Y3 sacrifice. Um, well, no, they'd be down the yellow. Okay, but I'll stop rabbit holing. Simon doesn't have enough blue for the Doomsday Machine yet, so I think Fiend is closer to the Doomsday Machine than Simon is. Oh, and Simon uses two more time jokers. Gosh. All right. Well, this is fun. We can see about their time here. So on the 19th, they used their time jokers. Fiend made a move a couple days later. And let's see how long it takes Simon to make their move. Yeah, weeks. More than a week later that Simon came back and made their move. Okay. So I hope Simon had a good time doing it, whatever it was they did during their time jokers. And all of that, and I forgot what was going on. Oh, Fiend did not move to a nice safe colony. They moved it to... Ooh, I don't like that so well. Moved it into Faust. Fiend should be thinking about blowing up Simon's stars, not about cutting down Simon's blues, I think. Fiend is limited in yellow, and so they've got the makings of a Doomsday Machine, but they need to be careful, very very aware of where they put those ships and what order they move them in. And moving this little blue to a system where it doesn't have access to yellow is in danger of being captured and in danger of being overpopulated for that matter, is not the way to push your doomsday machine forward. This makes me think that Fiend doesn't realize how close they are to victory. Um, if Fiend had moved the little blue into Alti, I'm not sure there's anything Simon could have done about it. Um, but I'll leave that for people who have more time and resources than I have in the middle of making a video to figure out. Um, okay, Simon builds green. Simon might be hoping to get enough green to overpopulate the Bleb star. Fiend builds into that blue catastrophe. Okay, this isn't. Um, yeah, Simon didn't react to that, so that's. Simon did lose more in a sense. Technically, they lost the same number of ships, but Fiend was built the medium that got overpopulated. Um, and I guess that's still pretty good for Fiend. Um, Simon has no blue now, so that's a nice defense. So Fiend's blue star is a little safer. Um, and Fiend can safely build another blue here after Simon's turn because Simon doesn't have any blue. If Simon trades for blue, then Fiend has an easy blue catastrophe. Okay, going for green. All right, this is a little bit of a problem, but not as much as Fiend is probably going to think. Well, let's see. Hmm. So I want to say Fiend builds a little blue. Simon, I think, would then sacrifice Y2 to move 2 greens into Bleb. Threatening to move in another green and overpopulate the whole thing. Um, again, that's a B1. Oh, and yeah, I'll draw this back. Okay, two little greens here. From here, if Fiend were to well, they could sacrifice the Y3 to bring all the blues into Simon's home for the overpopulation, but then Fiend doesn't have any yellow left. Simon would get to build the Y would get to build yellow. And Fiend doesn't have enough yellow to bring reds in because you have to sacrifice um, yellow in order to overpopulate a red star, unlike the blue that I was discussing earlier. So I think Simon has successfully defended what would have been a doomsday machine. I think Fiend needs to start reacting to those greens. Building the little blue. No, that's the direction I was hoping this would go, but I think Simon's gonna threaten it. Okay, just moving in one for now. Yeah, do the yeah. So that and this is Simon is taking a piece of my advice that I've written down someplace, I think, but wasn't thinking of just now. As a rule of thumb, if you're going to take 2 turns to do an invasion, like Simon wants to move these 3 greens into Bleb, one of them just moving ordinarily with a free action and one with the Y2 sacrifice, you should usually take the free action first, because if Simon were to do the Y2 and move in the 2 greens, Simon is potentially, I mean, those 2 greens are sort of lost, and so's the Y2, of course, because you've just sacrificed it. If Fiend finds a way to extract themselves from that situation, Simon's lost 3 ships. Whereas doing it this way, using the free action first instead of the sacrifice, if Fiend has a way to extract themselves, then Simon's only lost 1 ship. So good on Simon for doing it this way around. They've got the right idea. They need to knock out this Doomsday Machine. Okay, Fiend, thinking about the big. Nope, nope. This is. I saw this coming so bad. Um, yeah, Fiend likes knocking out stars a little too early, I think. They're spending their only yellow to knock out 1 star, and Fiend has plenty of red, but they're not going to have the yellow to move it in, and they're not going to get that yellow, I don't think, because Simon's going to build it. No, Simon should definitely build that Y3. If Fiend doesn't get their hands on more yellow, then Simon will absolutely win. Okay, and they sacrificed the little green to get it out of Fiendmonger's hands. Fiendmonger can't capture that little green anymore, which Fiendmonger would have loved to do. Yep, and just like that, I think Simon's won. Simon will keep a death grip on this yellow monopoly. Has Fiend got any chance at all? If Fiend could invade. No, Fiend can't invade Elwarop right now. If I was going to say, if Fiend could invade Elwarop with a medium or large red, Simon would only be able to get one of them away, but they can't. Okay, Fiend's trying. They're setting up. But I think Simon is going to retreat. Yeah, spread it out. Good. So these yellow stars are Fiend's only realistic chance of getting back into this. They need to get a blue ship to one of those yellow stars and then sacrifice it for the trade. Yeah, blue ship. And Simon can now just maneuver around. I think I'll go a little bit fast for a bit here. Fiend wants more blue. Simon building up green, sacrifice, builds. Yeah, keeping that red out of the bank. Yeah, the more red Simon can keep, the better off they are, but there's Fiend does have enough red to finish this. That's not a strong consideration. Simon's most important thing is keeping the yellow locked down. Fiend, I think what Fiend, my guess is what Fiend's trying to do is build their way into the B3 so that they can have a B3 at a yellow star to sacrifice. um, the you want to. I think Fiend is going to need a B3 to sacrifice, even though I mean that's a huge sacrifice to make to get a yellow ship. But if they try to use a smaller ship at a yellow star to sacrifice, then Simon's going to be able to invade and drive away or capture that that small ship that they're trying to use for the blue style investment. Okay, where are we? Fiend just built more blue. Um, Fiend, I think, should have considered sacrificing the little blue to trade the R3 for B3, even though that lets Simon build another big red. Um, I think that might be worth it because Fiend needs to get that medium yellow. They need to get it fast. And uh, fiddling around with building up all the blues is prolonging the game, a game in which Simon is ahead, and the more time that goes by, the more chances Simon is going to have to use their material advantage. Okay, Fiend spreading out the blues, trying to build more, but Simon, of course, can move in here and threaten this colony anytime. This might have been the threshold. None of those ships can run away, so Simon could move in, sacrifice the R3, and capture them all. Although Fiend would get to build the R3 immediately after, so maybe that's not so bad. Yeah, Simon likes that invasion, though. Fiend builds more. I'm expecting... Oh, I kind of thought Simon might capture anyhow. But Simon taking that B3 out of the bank. Nope, you're not going to get a B3, he says. Fiend building medium blues, though. Simon takes more green. Oh boy, this is a lot of stuff on the board here. Okay, what should Simon's plan be here? Simon has the yellow they need. They need the blue. They lack the blue. They could capture some here. Oh, I think Simon's actual plan here is to put color pressure on Fiend's large ships. So Simon is getting greens, and as Simon could overpopulate Fiend's mothership right now. It's probably not a good idea because they can just bring their other mothership, their flagship back, and Simon would have lost a lot of material. But by moving those greens in slowly, they'll pressure the mothership. That's my guess for what Simon's plan is anyway. Okay, Fiend spreading out the blues, trying to make a little threat on that little yellow. I think that, oh, let's see. If that little yellow were to just run away, then the B2 sacrifice would score Fiend a yellow, potentially. They wouldn't want to do it in this colony because it would get captured. They could do it at home, but it could get overpopulated. It's worth mentioning. I should have mentioned before. The homes are connected. Simon's large star got knocked out, and since Simon only has the small star left, it's connected to large stars of fiends. Yeah, let's see if they run away. Okay, no, Simon's going to ignore this threat for now. Just start putting the green pressure on Simon. Or on Fiend. So if Fiend doesn't capture, well, and even if they do, yeah, I think this is looking really good for Simon. If Fiend were to do the obvious thing and capture, then Simon sacrifices Y3 to move in 2 greens for the overpopulation and moves in their mothership. And yeah, Fiend could counterattack. Simon then only has 1 ship left in their home, but it's too late for Fiend to counterattack because a single R3 sacrifice by Simon wins the game. And Fiend can't both counterattack and defend with even 1 more ship. If Fiend even had a medium yellow right now, they could counterattack. They could counterattack that and bring another ship back. Red's probably better than blue here. Well, no, Simon has no blue. Blue's fine. Bring 1 ship back. Simon could capture all but 1 of Fiend's ships, and Fiend could capture the last of Simon's ships and potentially win. But even then, Simon has Y2. No, never mind. That works out. Yeah, so if Fiend had a Y2, they'd have a much better fighting chance. But as it is, I think Simon is going to win in a couple of turns here. Yeah, so Fiend. Oh, yeah, Fiend can reinforce, but that puts 2 reds here, which Simon is able to overpopulate. Oh, they could overpopulate, but even better, sacrifice the R3 and capture a bunch of stuff. Is that better? Maybe it's better. Any way you slice it, Simon Very close to victory here. Puts an R3 back in the bank. Can Fiend do anything with that? They can build it here, but then it'll just get overpopulated. No, I think Fiend's in... sacrifice it to capture everything. Okay, capturing back the yellow. Okay, so Fiend finally has a yellow ship. Um, yeah, it's not going to matter. Simon sacrifices the Y3, moves in the greens, overpopulates the mothership, also brings in a red to finish the game. Fiend can capture back a few things, but Simon... Aha! Well, if I'm Simon, I'm going to sacrifice that Gilligan guy who's been... Yeah, there we go. Let Gilligan have an important influence on the game. There we go. Um, yeah, that was pretty exciting. Fiend, I think that's the same mistake, knocking out um, that star too early, losing too much material, and letting Simon get away with the yellow monopoly were the Fiend's problems here, I think. Um, yeah, all right. Well, that is a point on the board for. Okay, remember who goes first? Simon went first. So Simon versus Fiendmonger. That's a Simon victory. Score of 1. All right. Great game. Looking forward to seeing the rest of these, and thank you for watching.